right, now I'm going to use this as a transition because we're going to get into the thing that you're really known for, the achievement side of things. But what I want to know was, okay, you were in the outlaw biker world, and now you're doing all these things. You won, all these championships. You had businesses. What was it that, besides the event that changed your life with the shotgun at the bar, but what was it that made you all of a sudden just be a totally different person and go from hiding from who you really were to accepting who you were and just totally kicking ass?
Well, it's interesting you ask that because it's somewhat hard to isolate the specific incident and/or experience or shift in belief. But I know this now from my own experience and what I teach is that it was a shift in belief. And it's interesting because there's a couple of ways to shift beliefs, obviously. Sometimes you just got to get slapped in the face with something. Hey, this is what I believe. Boom. No, this is the truth. Let me show you. So you see it and it's like, oh my God, I guess I got to believe it. That's the reality. So we shift our beliefs based on that. And I started to see some things that represented a different reality. I had a belief around the biker community, about the biker world that was different than the reality. And when I began to when that belief began to shift, then other beliefs that were attached to it began to shift as well. That maybe I don't belong here. Maybe I am better than what I think I am. And I started to study achievement. I literally started studying one of the first books that I read at the time, and this is something I read as a teenager when I wanted to try and excel as a bodybuilder, when I had all this confusion going on. Right. It was a book called Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz. Yep. And it's still a very popular I don't think it's on the bestsellers list anymore today, but it's a very, very popular book in the personal growth and development community, and it's truly empowering. And I started to read some of the stories, and I started to read some of the and learn some of the tools and skills about shifting and changing beliefs about ourselves. Maxwell Maltz, who wrote the book, was a plastic surgeon, and he wrote it back in the 50s. Mm-hmm. And what he talked about was his experience with people who had, say, very distorted nose or cleft chin or cleft lip, whatever it might be, that really they had a lot of self-conscious components around that. Psychologically, they couldn't break out of their shell personality-wise because of this. And he would change those things. And, sometimes people that just, weren't very attractive look like movie stars afterwards, right? Right. And some of those people would radically change. Their personalities would just vibrate outward. They would talk to people, meet people, and other people wouldn't change at all and not even see the difference. They'd look in the mirror and say to themselves, I don't see a difference. I don't see a change. And it's like, wait a minute, we changed your nose. Look at the before and after. And they literally would not see the change. And what he concluded, what he began to realize and research was that the beliefs that we have make all the difference in the world in terms of what our reality is, period. So for me, starting to read Maxwell Maltz, starting to study a little bit of Tony Robbins, who was really just kind of getting into the community with, Unleash the Power and the Power Within and Awaken the Giant. So I started to read and listen to a lot of things. I started to immerse myself. I said, there's got to be something more. There's got to be a way to change this disempowering belief about myself. So along the way, the shift changed in terms of the belief about what this biker community really was versus what I believed what it was. And with that change, that shift in belief, and the study of achievement and what can be accomplished if we can shift our beliefs around what is possible, all that started to reshape, and I started to test the waters. What can I do? Let me take a few risks here and there. Let me back out a little bit here. Let me slowly move away from this and try a little bit of that. So it wasn't something that happened. The acute experience was, of course, that experience in the bar, that inner voice went off, or my guardian angel perhaps whispered in my ear. That was the acute experience. The chronic component had started taking place a few years earlier with a consciousness that something has to change. This has to change. This is not really, I was still in it. You make this decision sometime, how many people do we know that make a decision, I got to stop smoking, I'm going to stop smoking. Right. And next thing you know, they're in the backyard lighting up a cigarette. Right. You know what, I got to stop drinking. I just can't drink this much anymore. It's too much. Next thing you know, they're pouring themselves a scotch. Yeah. We don't take action on the decisions. I was willing and had the courage and the support, thank God, to take the action on what I began to realize needed to change. And that's really the overall catalyst right there.
Okay, now you're talking about Maxwell Maltz and bringing up some of his stuff, and one of the things I know a lot of the gurus talk about, and we're going to talk about, is the mindset. I know Steve Hockman is real big into that, and he's always trying to get people in the right mindset. And he's always talking about RAS, the Reticular Activating System. I know that's covered in that book. Can you describe a little bit of what that is and how that limits our beliefs and how that helps us?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's interesting because not a lot of people, a lot of the talks that I do a lot of speaking now, and a lot of the audience have never heard of the reticular activator. And that's the RAS, the reticular activating system. And the reticular activator is actually a very real, solid physiological component of the brain located just below the brainstem and basal ganglia in the back of the brain. And you might call it the border guard. And imagine, you go from the, I was going to use the Mexican-American border, but that's too easy. The Canadian border, which is a lot tougher. When you're trying to get into the Canadian border, you've got to show paperwork. They ask history. Sometimes you're asked to go to immigration and kind of give more information along the line. So, the reticular activator works like a border guard who will only allow into your consciousness, your conscious thoughts, those things that are familiar, problematic, or significant to you. Those things that are important, you might say. So, there's a lot of things that come at us. We're inundated with literally billions of bits of information every moment, right? Walking down the street, you got the breeze blowing on, you got leaves falling around, you've got people moving, you've got colors, you've got textures, you've got thoughts. There's billions of bits of information coming at us at any given moment. We can't process all of it. So the reticular activating system allows into the consciousness those things that are significant, problematic, or important, right? So let's say you're walking down a trail here in Colorado, and you may not consciously be aware, but all of a sudden your reticular activator will point out, hey, wait a minute, there's a snake over there. You didn't notice it consciously, but bam, all of a sudden you're aware of it, right?
Right.
That's what the reticular activator does. And the reason why it's important, and the reason why it's really critical that we program the reticular activator, is so that we allow into our consciousness those resources, the assets, and the opportunities that we would otherwise completely overlook or just walk right by in terms of achieving what we want. And the way you program the reticular activator is to simply identify what you want. If you want a red Corvette, if your goal is a red Corvette, as soon as you identify that, write it down, and make it important, all of a sudden the reticular activator will start to point out not only all the red Corvettes that you're seeing out on the road, which becomes an extraordinary number, by the way. All of a sudden you start to notice them, right? Where you didn't notice them before. But also the assets, the resources, and the opportunities for you to be able to obtain one of those Corvettes, because you otherwise overlook them. Somebody like Donald Trump, for example, programs and has programmed his reticular activating system to never overlook an opportunity. Otherwise, underutilized resources that people would just, not so important. He gets it, boom, like that. So it's really an important factor in the achievement process, man.
All right, so the reticular activating system is really, really important to the whole process of achievement. Let's talk about goals for a little bit. Everybody talks about that. Got to have them. It's great. People are, yeah, I want to be rich. But what's the importance of having goals in life, and how do you actually set them so that they work for you?
Great question, because the vast majority of people don't have goals. In fact, it's interesting, 50% of small businesses don't have a clearly stated mission statement, which in many respects becomes the overall goal, the overall mission. And I encourage individuals, not just businesses, to have their mission purpose. It's one of the things that'll keep you from being burned out. A lot of times, this idea of just working hard and nose to the grindstone, pushing forward with no real purpose or only some semblance of an ambiguous idea of what we want to achieve leads to burnout. It leads to quitting. It leads to surrendering and losing the overall battle. You worked your ass off for months or years. For what? You got to get really clear. And that's one of the first components in setting a goal, is to identify what it is that you want. And most people never really get clear on it. We have this, like I said, ambiguous idea. We've got this, what do you want? I want to be rich, man. Worse yet, you know what? most people identify it as something they don't want. I'll tell you what I don't want. I'm tired of being freaking broke. I'm tired of not having any money in my pocket. I'm tired of being in this crappy relationship. I'm tired of this crappy job. I got to do something, man. That's what most people do when you ask them what they really want. What are their goals? They'll identify them as the things that they don't want because we're so immersed in what we don't want most of the time, right?
Right.
And by the way, much of what you experience in your life that you don't want, if you reframed it, it would be a whole lot easier to live with. But at the same time, our lives shouldn't consist of things that we can live with. It should consist of the juice, as Tony Robbins would call it, the juice of life, the things that we truly want to experience. But most of us don't take the time to really get clear on what those are. It's the first rule in the achievement process. Get really crystal clear on exactly what you want. Hone it down, distill it down to its finest point. I was on a coaching call last night with a group of individuals that are studying to be weight loss coaches, and they're going to be extraordinary weight loss coaches. But the facilitator had asked one individual, I asked them all, one of their assignment was to write 2 of their goals, and then they're going to share them with the group. And she asked them to do that. So she picked an individual, and this individual went through a laundry list. I'm going to get up early. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to get on the scale every week. I'm going to eat better. And they continued on like that. And I said, can I interrupt for a moment? I said, because what you just did was you just gave us a laundry list. You didn't give us any specific goal. You never had a specific outcome. You didn't have a date attached to it. And you certainly had no meaning really behind it. So this is what a lot of people do as well. We kind of run down this laundry list of things we want. Most of them are ambiguous. I want to be rich. I want to be in a great relationship. I want to have a new car. I'd love to have a new home, you know? And we think we've identified what we want. But the truth is, that format, that way of identifying what it is we think we want is not enough power. In fact, it's 0 power in terms of achieving it. It gives us nothing. The unconscious mind, the way it works, just suddenly says, okay, that's great, and then move on to the next thing. What's the fire that I got to put out right now? What's the thing I have to do right now? Instead of having that long-term goal or objective of what we're going to achieve, and then breaking it down into shorter ones. So the importance of having a goal cannot be understated. The problem is goal setting and goal achievement has kind of gotten a bad rap in the last few years or so, because so many people set goals in a way that makes them either unachievable or doesn't do anything to strengthen their ability to really achieve it. So, you know what, I set goals. It never worked for me. You know, a lot of people do this stuff around New Year's Eve, right? We set these resolutions. Right. They don't work. I never achieved one goal I set for myself. I'm betting, however, and I've had this experience, that if you went back, if you took the time to write down what it is that you were, if people took the time, instead of just saying, I resolved to stop smoking on New Year's Eve, and wrote it down and said, bam, on June 1st, I will have stopped smoking for the last 3 months, done. And then they go back a year from now and take a look at that. They'll have found that in the vast majority of cases, it was achieved. But most people, 95%, never take that action, never do. But it's critical in the achievement process, there's no question. It's number 1.
There are a lot of struggling fitness professionals out there who may work in a big box gym, and they're tired of the grind that they have to do, and they want to get out, but they just say they can't, or they, for whatever reason. What would you say is the first step that they could do to start getting themselves moving in the right direction?
Well, you know, it's interesting because when I was really immersed in the bodybuilding world, people wondered, how did I excel so quickly? And part of it is that, you know, when I started to identify what mistakes others were making that were keeping them from moving forward, one of the things I started to hear a lot of were excuses, to be honest with you. You know, and it's so chronic and rampant in the bodybuilding community. I love the bodybuilding community, but here's what you hear all the time. Hey, did you see me in the Metropolitan Championship last week? Man, I should have freaking won that thing, man. They didn't even put me in the top 5. Those freaking judges suck. Those guys don't know what the hell they're looking at. Or, you know what? The guy that won, he trains at the head judge's gym. Of course he's going to win. It's all freaking politics, right? Come on, man. Excuses, excuses, excuses. Excuses keep people from achieving what they want, even identifying, because it allows them to stay comfortable. It's politics, right? It's something else that's stopping them from doing it. So the first thing I would tell anyone in the fitness community who's working in a big box club is understand that this is a stepping stone for you, and begin to identify how you can separate yourself from the pack. Most times we want to be part of the pack. This was certainly my dilemma early on, right? I mean, come on, you're an outlaw biker. You must have some desire to be part of the pack, yes?
Right.
Now, being a lone wolf doesn't necessarily work either, but separating yourself and being part of a different pack, a pack that's truly achieving, a pack that's really, striving and truly taking a leadership role, is what all those, I don't care if you're your first month at a 24-hour fitness, a Bally's, or a big box club in some way, shape, or form, you should be looking to identify those people who are in the leadership role. Your job is to take that leadership role, to embrace it, to see what are the traits that they employ, what are the attributes that they have. How can I start to personify that? And instead of striving just to say, well, I'm going to get out of here as soon as possible, or I need more clients, take on that leadership role. Be a true leader in the community. Find out what others are doing that have done that already, and start to personify that. Make those people who are doing it the way you want to do it, which is exactly what I did. Make those people your new role model, your confidence role model, your achievement role model, your leadership role model, and begin to personify those things. And all of a sudden, you'll see things start to change for yourself. You can set goals, absolutely. In fact, I would highly recommend it. If your goal is to say, hey, you know what? I want to own one of these gyms someday. That's not good enough. It's ambiguous. I'm going to own my own 10,000 square foot facility, including this, and this, by June 2012. Period. And somewhere along the line, you're going to have to develop the resources and the skills and the abilities to make that happen. But you set that as the first goal, and then you start to identify the skills, the abilities, and the resources that others have put together to make that happen, because they've done it before. You're not the first one to do that. Mm-hmm. There's very few goals out there, very few things that we want to achieve that hasn't already been done. So find out how they've done it. Set the goal first, and then find out how others have done it, and take that leadership role and develop those resources along the way. Your starting point in a big box club as a trainer is a great place to start. It's exactly where I started. If you have to clean the toilet, you clean the freaking toilet. If you got to scrub the floor, you scrub the floor. If you're just a trainer, fantastic. That's great too. It's all right. You got to start somewhere, man.
Okay, now if somebody has a business, let's say they've had it for a while, but they've been struggling, they just haven't been able to get it going, would the same ideas, points, things work for them also?
Would what? I'm sorry, say again.
The
With
same
what?
ideas in terms of, trying to set goals and just get their business to the next level. Would that also work, as what you were explaining with someone who's stuck in a big box gym and they're trying to get out?
Yeah, there's a couple of things, and I want to point just a couple of things out, because Eric, I know that you're a great achiever and a leader already, but I want to point out two points of language that you utilize. One, you said, the trainers that are stuck in a big box gym and trying to get out. Mm-hmm. Stuck and trying are not the words of achiever or leader. So anyone who's using that, and again, that becomes the excuse sort of, and again, it's just identifying how we also, all of us, whether you're that trainer in the gym, wanting and striving to achieve more, or a small business owner wanting and striving to achieve more, the language that you use sets up your psychology whether you're going to succeed or fail, big time. So trying, stuck, these are words that are not achievement words. So for the trainer who is in the big box club, striving to achieve more and to take that true leadership role of who they really are. For the small business person, by the way, just to answer your question directly, mm-hmm. even more important that they set goals. As I said, 50%, and if you look at the statistics, the vast majority of the 50% of small businesses that don't have a written, clearly stated and shared with their employees and their contractors mission statement are the businesses that go out of business very quickly within the first 3 years. If you're working on, because listen, it's not, I know from my own experience, it is not easy to operate a athletic club in terms of your time. You got to manage your time. You got to be there. You got to keep an eye on it. You got to run most of the operations, do most of the training up front first on your own. So it's a real challenge. You've got to know exactly why you're doing this. What's the end game? What's the goal ultimately? Is it to own 5 of these? Is it to own a chain? Is it to create a particular training a modality, like some of the new boot camps. What is it that you're going to do here ultimately? And you set that as a goal. Be very firm about it. Get clear on it. It's vitally important for small businesses to do that, or small business owners to do that. Not only that, but share it. Share it with those people that are around you, because I got to tell you, as a personal training studio owner for several years, one of the things that kept people with me, I wasn't paying them more. In fact, I was probably paying them less than some of the other athletic clubs were. But one of the things that kept them with me for years was that they were part of the mission. They had a sense of purpose. They had a sense of team and camaraderie. And when you don't share your mission statement because you don't have one with your employees or your people, they never really feel a part of a collective unit. You want them to feel that, man. And you want them to contribute to that. You can get some incredible ideas. You don't have all the ideas in the world. I certainly didn't. But you've got to get those people that are closest to you, that are working with you, to share their ideas, to contribute to your growth, and reward them for doing so. But I tell you, some of the best ideas I've ever had in the fitness industry came from employees, because they knew what our mission was. They knew what our purpose, they knew what our goal was, and they wanted to contribute to that. So yeah, vitally important, even more than on an individual basis.
Okay, you talked a little bit before about the reticular activating system. I want to talk a little bit about visualization, because they're kind of tied in together.
Yeah.
How important is visualization, and maybe what's the right way to go about doing that so that you can kind of manifest the things that you're trying to get?
Very good. The word manifest is a great word, by the way. I mean, it truly means the creation of what you want. And it's got to first start with a thought, a droplet of thought. You know, it's sort of like, the cliche dropping of a stone in the river, and it just kind of expands outward. So your thoughts lead to your feelings. Your feelings lead to your actions, and your actions ultimately lead to your results, right? And I believe, by the way, that's the process of manifestation. I believe that really begins with our beliefs. The beliefs lead to our thoughts. So, it is so important, to really start to create a picture. And I call it an internal representation, because for me, it's very visual. I'm able to visualize relatively clearly in terms of what I want, and create a picture of that. But for some people who have different internal representational systems, different primary learning modalities, like, for example, some people are more auditory. Their idea, or their internal representation of the future of what they want may be more what they hear. For someone else, it might be a feeling. They're more kinetic. They feel it in the body. So just restricting someone to having a vision of the future. So what we want to get clear on is that vision of the future, the visualization component, should be based on an overall internal representation: visual, auditory, kinesthetic, even olfactory. Should include all those components. The more you include those different components, the more real it becomes for you. And the idea that you want, like, a bodybuilding champion. When I wanted to win that Mr. America, I visualized it every single day. And it came to a point where I didn't have to make an effort to visualize that. It was just bam. When I thought about it, I saw the picture. But the first place that I learned about visualization was through Maxwell Maltz in psychocybernetics. And he takes you through a process, in which is, it's a sort of self-hypnosis process of getting into a relaxed state and connecting with the unconscious mind through certain ways of doing that. And again, it's just sort of deep breathing, relaxing, and allowing yourself to settle in, and leaving the conscious behind a little bit, and then picturing, imagining. See, we've gotten lazy in our ability to imagine. When we were children, when I was in fourth grade and I saw those bikers pull up next to the car, I imagined what it would be like for me to be on one of those motorcycles, to have that power. When I first touched a barbell, I imagined what it would be like to be a champion bodybuilder, like I saw in Muscle Builder magazine, in those black and white pictures. But we lose that ability because it's a muscle. And like any other muscle, it takes practice. If you were to stop working your biceps, your legs, your back, your heart, your lungs, those things will get weak. So our imagination gets weak. Or we evolve into imagining what we don't want, or the worst case scenario. We've got to pull back from that. So the critical factor of creating an internal representation of your goal, of your objective, is so powerful, primarily because what it does is it programs the unconscious part of the mind. And it's the unconscious part of our mind. We've all had this experience where we did something unconsciously and didn't even know we did it. Oh my God. It's interesting because my wife get pissed at me for telling you this, but we had this great, we're both on this really tight nutrition plan right now. We're getting ready for an event coming up. Not a modeling event or a bodybuilding event. We just want to be leaner and healthier and more fit. And we've been eating these great salads, right? So we had this salmon salad, and with the salad, the mushrooms and the tomatoes, and it was really great. And it was healthy. And we sit down, I'm working at my computer, all of a sudden I glance over, and she's got her hand in the mixed nut jar. We've got all these mixed nuts in there. It's healthy, it's great, but it's a lot of calories, right? So she's consuming these nuts, and all of a sudden I'm looking over, I'm like, do you realize you just had like 5 or 6 big handfuls of those nuts? Do you realize how many calories are in that? She's like, oh my God, I didn't even realize I was doing it. So we do things unconsciously, but that unconscious drive, the things that we do unconsciously, is driven and can be programmed when we visualize, when we create an internal representation for what we want. It becomes the model that the unconscious mind moves us towards, as Maxwell Maltz taught like a unconscious, goal-seeking, cybernetic mechanism. We programmed it unconsciously. This is what I want. This is what I intend to achieve. And even more powerful, this is what I have now. When you already have what you want in your mind, then your unconscious mind begins to set out to make it happen, period. Incredibly powerful. At times, you don't even have to think about it consciously. You don't even have to make any effort. Your unconscious mind will simply drive you towards making it happen, period. So the visualization, internal representation thing, really important. By the way, if you're okay, I'd like to give a gift to some of your viewers.
Sure.
Yeah, I've got a great program called the IR process, and it's the internal representation process. And it's part of my 7 Rules of Achievement book. It's in the book, but I also created an audio around it. And if you go to 7rulesofachievement.com/resources, you'll see several resources in there. One of them is the IR visualization process. And it's a great little audio. It's about 30 minutes or so. It'll take you through a slight hypnotic process and then help you visualize your objective. Not only that, but it uses what's called a timeline therapy process, which helps you take it into the future and plant it right where you want it, where you intend to make it happen. I talked about owning an athletic club earlier, and if that's one of your goals, don't make it something you want to do. Make it something you're going to do on June 1st, 2012. I will, or already do, own a 10,000 square foot athletic club, and plant it, drop it into that space in the future so that it's fully in your timeline already. So 7rulesofachievement.com/resources, and it's right there for you.
Yeah, and I'll leave a link below so everybody can grab that. That would be that's really cool. That's something that I'm going to dive into too. Now I want to ask, because we're talking about visualization and representation and all this stuff. Is it more important to visualize ourselves actually in that moment, or visualizing us wanting it?
Man, that's a great question. And I have a very specific answer for you. The power of visualizing yourself in the moment makes it real. It makes it something that your unconscious mind will work towards achieving. Seeing yourself in the process, for example. In other words, the difference, we call it being associated and disassociated. Associated, when I used to visualize winning the Mr. America competition, I would literally be associated into the experience. In other words, I was on stage, seeing from my own eyes the audience, hearing from my own ears the MC announcing my name as the winner. I could smell the sweat, I could smell the oil, I could smell the tanning lotion, right? I had this experience very associated into it. That was part of the visualization, part of the IR process. Disassociating would be, let's just say, seeing myself on stage as an audience member. I'm watching the process take place, you might say. That's called disassociation. Now, the difference between associated and disassociated in terms of your visualization or using your imagination or even self-hypnosis is that being associated creates something that you believe is real, something that's going to happen, you're going to experience. Being disassociated creates desire. And in fact, in some of the timeline processes that I do with my coaching clients, what we do is we have them be associated into the experience, right? They're seeing from their own eyes the experience, the people that are around them, what they're wearing, a whole bit. and then I pull them out of the experience and have them look down on it to create desire. Because when you're looking at someone, it's sort of like, let's face it, you want that red Corvette, and all of a sudden you're sitting at the light, and some guy pulls up in the red Corvette, and you're looking at this guy driving the red Corvette, and it's like this gorgeous car. What happens? You create desire. You want it. Oh man, I gotta have a fucking car like that. I want to be that guy. You know? Mm-hmm. So being disassociated creates a very powerful driving desire, a passion to make it happen. I personally think utilizing both, stepping into the experience as an associated experience and then disassociating from it, witnessing it from above or the side, wherever you want to be, mm-hmm. wherever it would call for it, would create the desire. Man, go out there and make it happen. The unconscious mind has been programmed to assist you in making it happen unconsciously, but now on a conscious level, you also have this driving force, this passion to make it happen. So both are great. Great question, by the way.
Can you reach your goals and visualize everything you want without one of those? Could you do you have to be part of the association and not disassociate with it, or do both of them have to be included?
I would say if you're going to utilize an internal representation or visualization process, you want to be as associated into it as possible. If for people, for example, I have hard times. I can't find the drive, man. I'm just lacking passion. I can't seem to get up in the morning, get to the gym. For those individuals, being disassociated often and seeing it and really, by the way, part of the IR process is embodying and enhancing. We call it submodality. So if the picture's in black and white, then turn it into color. If the feeling is sort of there, I feel like a little excited, enhance it. Make yourself, multiply it by 10. Make yourself feel excited about it. So for those people who have a hard time getting passionate about achieving their goals, we disassociate them from the experience, have them enforce or reinforce the emotion behind that desire and passion it even more. For those people, being disassociated is critical. We've got to get them driving towards it. We've got to get them feeling more passionate about it. But in general, having the experience, programming your unconscious mind has already been experienced, mm-hmm. your unconscious will lead you towards making it happen.
Okay, now there's a lot of people who say, I'm not able to manifest what I want. I'm doing all this stuff that you're saying, and they're still not getting it. Why is it that they're not able to do that?
Well, the first thing that I would say, and this is probably 95% of the times, is because we've identified what we want, but we're focused on what we don't want. And what we focus on is what manifests into our lives. We're not necessarily what we want, unless we've really programmed ourselves and we live that. What happens is a lot of times, I'll just use, money, for example, wealth or abundance. We set a goal. I will earn 6 figures. I'm going to earn $150,000 in 2011. That's my goal, and we get really clear on it. By the way, in the resources at the 7 rules, there's something else called the action goals criteria. Download that. It's in my opinion, I created it. It's a lot more advanced and a lot more powerful than the SMART goals criteria, which is so readily used today. It's still good, SMART goals, but the action goals criteria is much more powerful. It's much more comprehensive. So download that. But what I was saying was that we've set this goal. We've identified what we want, but yet we're focused most of the time on what we don't want. If you've set a goal that you're going to make $150,000 in 2011, and that would create, eliminate all the stress that I have in my life, all these bills. But the moment I turn away from that goal, I'm focused on the freaking bills that I have. I'm focused on the fact that I don't have any money. I focus on the fact that I'm broke and I'm struggling and I'm driving this piece of shit car. And this is what I'm always focused on. That's what's going to manifest more in your life. You're going to get more of the same. Because the law of manifestation, the secret was all about, what we focus on expands. So what we've got to do is not only identify and set our goals and objectives, create an internal representation for that, but also start to take away some of the emotional power and disempowering emotions associated with all the stuff that we don't have, that we don't have it right now. We get so fixated on not having it right now. We get desperate. And our mind, our unconscious mind, that's what is programmed to achieve more of. I know it's tricky, And it takes the right skills for the most part. But the key is to create as much emotion associated with what it is that you're achieving and or will have in your life, and take as much emotion away from those things. Hey, listen, we got to pay the bills. Right. But if every time you have to write a check, it's like, oh, fucking, I got to, oh my God, I don't have enough in my bank account, and you're all stressed out about it. All of a sudden, that's what your unconscious mind is programmed. So you know what? Let that shit go. You got to deal with what you got to deal with. That's it. Know that soon it's all changing. It's in the process of changing right now as we speak. But that's the primary reason why most people don't manifest what they want, is because they're focused on what they don't want.
Okay, now I have to ask this because I know I have friends and other people, as John Spencer Ellis calls this, woo-woo. Like a lot of this is, a lot of people don't believe in this process. What do you have to say to that?
Well, how's that been serving you up to this point? Remember what we talked about? I mean, the essence of our conversation goes back to beliefs. Mm-hmm. My beliefs about myself as a young student, and not being worthy and smart, and not being able to fit in with the normal, students in society. It was all belief, right? When those beliefs changed, everything changed along the way. So, not believing something, woo-woo, all that shit, Great. You know what? If you're massively successful, awesome. Keep doing what you're doing. But if you're still struggling and you're still having a challenge and you got this belief that, this stuff, I don't know, it's not for me, that's fine. But you got to ask yourself, are you hiding behind that belief? Because you have the capability of manifesting something really magnificent in your life. My true belief is that every single person on this call, every single person doing this video, every single fitness professional, every person in the world, albeit maybe not bin Laden, is magnificent and has the capability of manifesting that magnificence. But like me, hiding in the biker community at that time, we hide behind our beliefs. My belief was I wasn't good enough to be anywhere else but right where I was. Your belief is that, this woo-woo shit, this concentration, this is secret, this is manifestation crap. That's not for me. It doesn't really work anyway. You know what I mean? Even setting goals doesn't work. It's crap. Mm-hmm. If your current belief isn't serving you, then it's disempowering you. So what I would say was, try it out, man. Change it, but be committed. You can't, and again, if you want to manifest, as Freud said, your current beliefs, then just try it. But don't really believe it works, because that will reinforce your belief that it doesn't work, because it won't work for you. You got to believe it will work. You got to shift your mindset. You got to make some changes. I've got a very dear friend from back in New York. Brilliant guy, really smart, just talented. The guy could do anything. He Facebooked me the other day. I haven't seen him in several years. And he did oh my God, it was so well written. But it must have been 10 pages long on Facebook. So you can imagine this narrow little stream of copy coming down, right? Mm-hmm. Sharing with me his, where he is in his life now, in his 50s. He's going to be 53. And sharing where he is in his life now. And he's struggling, not only financially, but in his relationships, in his beliefs about himself. And the last thing he says is, I don't want to die with any more regrets than I already have. Can you help me? And this is the same guy that you're talking about. Woo-woo! Oh, yeah. Like, imagine this, imagine that, And all his life he's been struggling, think he's doing okay, and now he's at this point in his life where he's got to make a change. And he's looking for something different, something new, something that will help him manifest that change. I'll be introducing some of these tools to him, obviously, certainly. And you start to accumulate regrets and start to think about dying with even more regrets. Start to make those changes now. If your beliefs aren't serving you, you got to change them.
Right. Regret weighs tons, as they say.
Oh, yeah.
So, and one of the things that I know some people, actually a lot of people struggle with, and it's things that I've struggled with in the past is, I followed this, I've written down my goal saying I want to make X amount of dollars by this date. But deep down inside, I don't believe myself. People may be going through that. And I know, I'll be honest, that was an issue of mine for a long time. What can some people do to just start believing, what are steps or things they can do to start believing in themselves so that they can reach that goal?
Yeah. Well, that's another great observation, because a lot of times what happens is we do take on goals or objectives that they're just too overwhelming. And when we don't achieve them, we feel disappointed. We're even afraid to look at our goals because it's like you didn't really believe it in the first place. I'll be honest with you. This was several years ago. And my wife and I were and I had already achieved, winning the national championship, several very successful athletic clubs. But there was a cap to what I believed even then that I was going to be able to achieve, particularly in the financial area. And my wife and I were at a Tony Robbins event, and we were going through a goal achievement or goal setting process. And she had written down that we would have a net worth of $50 million by a certain date. And I was mad. I was actually pissed because I'm like, this is supposed to be a serious process here. You know what I mean? We're not going to fucking do that. We're never going to achieve that. We're never going to be worth $50 million. This is not going to happen, right? So I had this big disempowering belief around it, man. I didn't even want to set that goal, period. And it kept me from even thinking about going in that direction. But a lot of times, whether it's something of that magnitude or something that, hey, for right now, setting a goal that you're going to earn $300,000 when you're only making 40 grand or 30 grand, it's a good goal, but maybe it's not this year. Maybe this year is $96,000. Doable. Because there's something about that $100,000 cap that kind of stops people a little bit. But I also have this thing called do, then believe. If you can get from $35,000 or $40,000 to $96,000, then maybe I can get to $106,000. Now I've just broken that, sort of like that bench press when we first started benching. Putting 2 plates on, 225 was like, oh man, that's a big freaking weight now. You know what I mean? It's like there's a barrier there. So instead of putting 2 plates on, we put a couple of 10s outside the 45, and it's close now. It's close, and we get that. And then we put a 2.5 on. We're really close now. We get that. And then we throw a 5 on. It's not the 45, but it's a couple of 10s. It's a 25. It's sort of accumulating the same exact weight. It just looks differently. We create a different belief around what's able. So 35,000 to 96,000 is doable. 96,000 to 106,000 is doable. Then all of a sudden, 150, 200, $300,000 a year, starting to save more, starting to invest more, creating a net worth becomes doable then. It's the do, then believe process. Setting goals, you do need to be ambitious. You need to have an ultimate goal along the way, the big picture. But setting goals that are 3 months, 6 months, 1 year away should be things that are a little tough to reach. They're going to force you to grow. All goal setting should force you to grow. If the goal is within your comfort zone, no big deal. Maybe you should have been doing this in the first place, but it won't expand you. It won't make you grow. So setting a goal is going to force you to grow a little bit. Instead of going from $35,000 a year to $50,000, which would be nice, certainly doable by all means. But going to $96,000, that's a lot of work. You're going to have to create some new resources and some new beliefs and learn some new things in order to make that happen, yeah? Mm-hmm. Once you do that, you start to believe differently. When Roger Bannister set a goal, when he began to believe that he could break that 4-minute mile barrier, he got close several times. And every time he got a little bit closer, every time he shaved a tenth of a second off, his belief began to solidify even more and even more and even more. It helped, of course, that he was pushed by John Langley, the Australian, right? I mean, great story, by the way. I share this story in a lot of my talks. It's a great story. He was pushed by Langley, but he also began to believe truly, because at first it was sort of like this goal. And maybe even for Roger Bannister, it was sort of like this goal, but everyone believed it was unachievable. And maybe, even on an unconscious level, he believed it was a little bit unachievable as well. But as he got closer, as he chipped away, at the 4+ minute mile, he got closer and closer, his beliefs began to shift a little bit. And then he was able to make it happen.
Right.
So back down the goals, back down the ambition a little bit perhaps. Make it something that's real, but something that you have to stretch in order to achieve. I know it's tough. I've done it myself. I set goals where I just didn't even want to look at them again. I was like, oh, shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm close. Pissed. In my book, I write about that. The fitness professionals was like, I wrote down all these goals, put them on my mirror, and it was like 6 months later, I tore them down. I was like, I had less clients. I was making less money. I was like, holy crap. So you got to do it right. The goal achievement is a process. And learn from those people who have really done it the right way. Employ the tools. It's going to seem cumbersome at first. Mm-hmm. Doing any kind of new exercise, you're going to feel a little weird at first. Then as the neural pathways develop, you'll start to be able to do it, and then ultimately be able to do it more efficiently, and then not even have to think about the process. When you set a goal for yourself, like someone like Trump, he sets a goal. It's going to happen. I seriously doubt that Trump sets any goals that he can't achieve and does achieve.
Right.
So he knows the process, and he does it unconsciously now. You can do the same thing. No.
Okay, we're gonna wrap up in just a few minutes. There's one question or two that I want to just cover before we do, because it is important to excuse me, to achieving your goals and everything, and that's confidence. A lot of times in business and in life, we lose confidence in ourselves and what we're doing. What are some of the things that we can do to get ourselves back on track and build confidence in ourselves so that we know we can get and reach those goals?
Well, certainly one of them is skills. I mean, there's three things that I usually list, and the first is the skill level. Most people have a lack of confidence because their skill level just isn't where it needs to be in order to achieve or do what it is they're trying to do. Running a marathon, I don't have a whole hell of a lot of confidence in my ability to run a marathon, quite frankly. But if I were to take the next couple of months and start running and start adding a little bit of every week, every month, there's a good chance not only would I be able to physically do it, but the belief system around it would start to shift as well. My confidence would increase. So, sure, absolutely. I mean, just getting in front of a group of 100 people and having to talk when you've never done it before, you don't have any skills around it, it's pretty tough. You're not going to have a lot of confidence going into it, and that's going to show up on stage, yeah? Your skill as a personal trainer. For me, as a personal trainer, when I was first starting as a bodybuilder, I had no certification. I had no clue other than the mentorship that I'd gotten from Tony what I was doing. I didn't know. I didn't go to school to study physiology, anatomy. None of those skills were there, and unconsciously I had a little lack of confidence around it. People did the training I did and they got results, right. But unconsciously it was like a little lack of confidence. Ultimately, I said, you know what? I'm going to get rid of this doubt. I'm going to study. I'm going to go for the toughest certification I can at that time, which is the American College of Sports Medicine. And I did extensive studies for that, and I did 2 certifications beyond the first that I didn't need to do, but I did anyway, because I wanted that confidence. I wanted that ability. I wanted that skill level up there so I could really feel good about what I was doing and believe in it. So that's the first thing, is get the skill level. The second is find a model. Use a role model for what you want to do. And I talked about this earlier in terms of your leadership role. Find someone who's in that role. For me, early on, there was a gentleman named Kevin Hood, who was a manager of one of the athletic clubs. And the guy was a great leader, loved what he did. And I started to model his approach, model his integrity, model his ethics. And they helped me become the person I am today because of that. So find a role model. I even utilize that tool I have a program called the Inner Game of Confidence. And it's a great program. And it takes you through, it's a 6, part audio program, book, workbook, and everything that just kind of takes you through step by step, different process, different things you can do to measure, gauge, and improve your confidence level. I know it seems like one of those things like, you either have confidence or you don't. You know what I mean?
Right.
True. Confidence can be a skill that's built. So the first is develop the skills needed to do what it is that you feel a lack of confidence in. The second thing is develop a role model. Find a role model or develop one. Just make one up. If your role model was walking into a room and you had to network? A lot of people aren't really confident around networking in groups, and like networking events and stuff. So how would your role model do this? What would he do? The first thing I can tell you for that, by the way, is to make it about them. Ask people, how can I serve you? How do I know, by the way, Eric, if I'm talking to someone, how do I know if I'm talking to someone that would be the right referral for you, for example? And you'd give me an answer. You'd say, well, they're a fitness professional, they're seeking to do more, they're in business. Right. And I'd say, great, you know what? I know people like that. I'm going to send them your way. Now it's not about me anymore. Sometimes when we make things about us and we're focused totally on us, then we lose our confidence. When you take it outside and you say, I'm serving others. I mean, if say, for example, your goal or your objective, or even you were put into this place where you had to MC an event and you've never MC'd anything before, but it's about kids with cancer. And you know what? There's no one else can do this job but you, man. We need you to do this. But I've never MC'd an event before. I don't know. You make it about you, you're going to be shitting pickles, man. You're going to be dying. But if you make it about those kids, and say, you know what, I'm just going to come from the heart, man. I'm going to make it about those kids. Those kids evidently need me to get up there on that podium, help them raise money, help them organize this event. I got to find a way to do it. And you just step up and do it. So that's the third way. Stop making it about you and making it about those people you serve. And all
Awesome.
of a sudden, the focus takes the spotlight. You know, we got the spotlight on us, man. It's like, holy shit. Take the spotlight off you and put it on others.
Awesome.
So the skill level, model, and take the spotlight off yourself. Those things are the time.
Tom, man, this has been an unbelievable session. I really think that this is probably one of the most important things when it comes to anything in life is just mindset, visualization, all these things. I really appreciate your time. I want more people to know about you, so where can they go to find that?
Well, there's a couple of websites. Certainly, one is the 7rulesofachievement.com, which is where you can find the book and some of the resources there as well. And we do some blogging on there too. And also tomterwilliger.com. And that's our blog. And I'd love for you to comment. We've got some great articles and great posts. I'd love for you to comment on those. And love for you to connect with us on Facebook. I think I'm just about there on my regular page, but the fan page is wide open. Love to become a fan. Please go to Facebook. Look up Tom Terwilliger, Terwilliger, and like, man, and I like you back. All right.
Awesome, Tom. Thank you again so much. I really appreciate it, and talk to you soon.
You got it, buddy. I'm gonna go hit the Harley and go ride with the boys now. We'll see you soon.